Okay, I'm back. And you know
Okay.
what's really interesting when this call came up?
Uh-huh.
You know in Nicole Todd?
Yeah, that's my mom actually. Wait, that's so
Okay,
strange.
so it came up like it was in my address book. You know how someone calls you if you
Really?
already have the number, it'll pop up. And I obviously don't have your mom's phone number in my book,
I
but
believe you now.
but I never seen it do that.
How odd. You know what? I'm still on my family's cell phone plan, so my guess would be that she's like the account holder, and for some reason that's so odd
It
though.
actually, yeah, instead of just a number, it's a name and a number. So now I've got to go back and look at my address book to see if there's actually Nicole Todd in there, because then it's going to get really weird if that's the thing.
Imagine that. Yeah, that's a little
Anyways,
creepy though. Anyway.
well, yeah, it kind of is, but you know, if it was truly creepy, I wouldn't be confessing to it. So,
No, not no, the phone companies. Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. Any
Um,
event. So all of that aside, you want to talk
all
about
that
plane
aside.
crashes?
Yeah. You
Okay.
seem like the perfect person to talk to.
I yeah, I have some experience in this area. I wouldn't try to answer that, but I have some experience in this area without sounding
Okay,
arrogant.
great.
But
Yeah, the idea, there's two goals. The first one is to just really reiterate and illustrate for people how statistically unlikely it is that the volume of plane crash, and then just give some top safety tips on how to make your very small odds even smaller.
okay. So I guess to address the first part, yeah, extremely rare. I mean, to fly on an airliner, it's 1 times 10 to the minus 7. So
Oh.
a zero with a decimal and a bunch of zeros after that. So I don't remember what some of the, there's ways where you see people calculate and say you could take a plane ride every day for 1,000 years or something and not have a crash or whatever. I don't recall any of those
Uh-huh.
explanations, but extremely rare. In fact, it's usually only about once every 7 years or so that we have some type of air carrier accident in the U.S. So one
Mhm.
of the safest records on the planet, in fact, only paralleled by Europe, the European skies. So the the rarity of it appears to be even getting a little bit better than that. So we're kind of on the cusp of, this has been the accident rate for a long time, but we're
Mhm.
kind of on the cusp of extending it even longer. And there's a lot of us that are doing work in the safety world that are trying to do just that. And there's a a possibility that the way that we're looking at accidents differently than the way we've looked in the past, almost like not like a cold case type perspective, but
Mhm.
looking at data differently, data-driven approach. Looking at data differently is kind of a new, exciting time for the accident investigative community. I'm going to a conference in the Middle East here next month, and it's an accident investigation conference, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if we're going to have some folks talk about just some of that type of work. But so extremely rare. I think what a lot of people also don't realize is the majority of events that we have that are classified as, quote, accidents are not actually the ones that we see on television, the really bad, all loss of life, complete total loss type
Mhm.
scenarios. Those are, in the accident world, those are even more rare. So the types of accidents that we do see are mostly survivable. An example of a mostly survivable type of accident was the Southwest Airlines event where there was one passenger who was killed after an uncontained engine explosion.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm not sure how many of the people on board, 150 or so, that's classified as an accident because there was a fatality, but basically everyone else survived. That's normally, when we talk about an investigative community, an accident, that's normally what we're talking about.
Okay. We
Now,
just don't tend to see those splashed on the news as much.
it just doesn't get as much media interest. That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So hence the awareness for the public is a lot less. I guess the wow factor isn't as much as there would be a smoking hole type event, as we call them. I don't know. Does that kind of address?
Yeah. It's just, I mean, like you said, with the 1 times 10 to the minus 7th, it's like that's so hard for people even to imagine how small
Well,
that is. So
yeah, and a lot of people don't understand scientific notation, so they wouldn't
No.
understand what 1 times 10 to the minus anything even means in the first place. But that's, most people would not know what that means. It's only all of us geeks that know what that means, right?
um,
So do you want to talk about ways to make things a little bit safer, or do you want me to go back and talk? Do you need a little bit more? I'm not sure exactly what else I would say about the rarity of it, but
let's see. Well, what would you tell somebody who's extremely afraid to fly because they have this kind of outsized fear of there being a crash?
I would tell people, and what I do tell people is that we teach a fear of flying class here at Port Columbus, and we do it several times a year, and we have just that, people that are deathly afraid to fly. And
Oh.
yeah, it's really a neat program. I teach the aviation, I teach the airplane portion, and then we have a psychologist come and talk about anxiety and fear and those kinds of things, and it's really a neat program. I'm really excited to be part of it, which sounds like a sales pitch, but I really am excited to be part of it. It's actually quite rewarding. It's the most rewarding volunteer work I've ever done, for sure, because it does change people's lives. People send us notes, and they went flying for the first time to California to visit a sister they haven't seen in 20 years or something. Just like these families reconnecting because people can now take airplane rides versus a week-long drive that's not practical for anyone anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. So one of the things that I talk about in that program is that there are no single-point failures on our airplanes. In other words, there's no part on any of these jets that if it breaks, you're doomed.
Oh, that's a good fact to know.
Yeah, no, and it's called single-point failure. No single-point failures. In fact, the regulations are designed for these airplanes saying there shall be no single-point failures. And the regulations on how things are to be designed are very strict.
Okay, that is comforting because that's kind of what you picture is one piece breaks off and then you're doomed.
Yeah, if this gadget breaks, we're all going to die kind of thing. So it's just not true. And in the majority of the systems on board the airplane have redundancy, have backup upon backup upon backup.
Mm-hmm.
So some of those systems have 3 layers of backups that the airplane will fly just fine on any one of them. For example, hydraulics, very important component on an airplane. Well, all these airplanes have at least 3 systems. It'll fly just fine with 1.
Wow.
But you have 3.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine learning that would be comforting.
Yeah. And so the other thing that we see in that class is the number one thing that, and this is just anecdotally, it's not an actual survey thing, but anecdotally what I notice is everyone's afraid of turbulence. That's the one that really tends to get people, and even seasoned flyers, you'll notice them kind of clenching their armrest or whatever when it starts getting bumpy. My ex-wife she was a pretty seasoned flyer, but when it got bumpy, I was going to have claw marks in my arm from her gripping onto it firmly. And of course, when you're flying in uniform, I used to be an airline pilot. When you're flying in uniform, everyone looks to you when it starts getting bumpy to see if you're not panicking, then things will all be fine. So you just have to look as cool, as calm as you can. But so turbulence seems to be the big one that bothers people, and understandably. And what we make sure that people know is that there has not been see, you're going to quote me on this, and I don't know the exact year. I was going to say about 60 years, but let's say a really long time since there's ever been an airplane accident related to turbulence. And that was an example of an airplane that flew into a thunderstorm.
Okay. I'll Google around about that and see if I can fact check that 60 years, but I'll quote you as a very long time, don't worry.
Yeah, just very long time. Basically just unheard of in modern times. You could say it that way. That sounds throwing that word modern in really separates a lot of distance year-wise. But So our airplanes just do not break. In fact, something that we show people is I show a video clip in this class of wing spar testing. So what the manufacturers have to do when they build a new airplane, they have to build several of them that are destroyed. So it's just part of the expense of doing business. And one of the ways they destroy the airplane is they show how far the wings can bend before they break.
Oh, wow.
And it's really impressive. You can go on YouTube and find this footage. And these wings, people see the wing out there bouncing 2 or 3 feet, and they think, oh, my God, it's going to snap off. These wings actually go up to like 45 before they break.
Wow.
Unbelievable flexibility.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. So when you watch this stuff, there's no turbulence that's that severe that would actually bend the wing that much. So when you see it out there bouncing around 5 feet, even 10 feet, you are still so far away from any structural limit on that airplane.
Yeah, even 10 feet wouldn't. Yeah, that wouldn't even be close to 45 degrees.
Wouldn't even get my attention, other than it spills your coffee and it's hard to read because everything's bouncing around. I mean, that's the most annoying thing I find.
And they have to stop the beverage service.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most. You can't go to the bathroom, right? That's the most annoying thing about turbulence is it's hard to read your book when it's bouncing around everywhere. The turbulence is just not a problem. We just don't break airplanes apart because of it. And we stay out of thunderstorms. We have all kinds of great predictive capability. We have all kinds of weather radar on board that's able to help us. And it's, when you fly for an airline, it becomes a matter of routine flying around thunderstorms and near them. And all airline pilots have so much experience doing that. And we know how to stay out of the middle of them. Most of the time, you can just look out the window and see them. You just see this big column in the sky, and you go, okay, don't hit that. That's what I got to do. It's that easy.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that air travel is, I don't know if it would be maybe the safest form of travel right now?
It is. It has been for a long time. It is the safest form of transportation, and has never been safer than it is now. The things that we traditionally think about worrisome as far as weather goes, turbulence, those things like that, are actually even less of a concern. We haven't had an accident in modern times that's been related to any of those.
Okay, great. That's helpful. And then, if you wanted to just kind of rattle off some of your top safety tips and then why those things are specifically helpful or would be in the case of an accident.
Yeah. So the most important thing is you should always count how many rows to the exit row. And of course, as they say in the briefing, it might be behind you. But count how many rows. And the reason being is, as I said earlier, the majority of our accidents are survivable accidents. But where we have the biggest problem is people trying to evacuate. And evacuations are typically done in visibility challenged environments, usually smoke type scenarios. And you might not be able to stand up. You might not be able to look around and see 15 rows up that there's an exit right there. But if you have to crawl along the floor or feel your way, you know that it's 8 rows away. You can count as you're walking or crawling or navigating your way towards where you know the exit is. You should not try to figure out where the exits are on the airplane when it all starts going bad.
Yeah.
There's no time to be working on that. So even to this day, even as an experienced airline pilot, and I travel all over the world, I travel so much. In fact, I think I travel more now than when I was flying with that.
No way.
Like it. Yeah, it feels like I spend more time in the back than I did up front. But I still, to this day, I always look around me and I count how many rows to the exit row.
Okay.
One of the biggest questions that I get in different forums is, where's the safest part on the airplane, right? Is it in the front? Is it in the back? And statistically, there's not much of a difference. There is a little bit of significance for the back of the airplane, that it might be a little bit safer back there. Traditionally, that's true because the tails of the airplanes tend to have less damage. Or if an airplane's going to crash, the energy is being dissipated throughout the aircraft, and it usually starts in the front of the aircraft and is dissipated rearward. So the more airplane you have between you and the initial impact point, that's more airplane to absorb the energy than your body absorbing the energy. So I'm probably going into far more kinematics than you probably want. What I'm trying to say is that the further you are in the back of the airplane, the more distant you are from any typical initial impact site, and the airplane protects you more.
Okay.
This is why they put the black boxes back in the tail, which, by the way, aren't black, they're orange. But that's why they put those in the tail, because the tail usually receives the least amount of damage.
Okay.
So that's why they put them back there.
Okay. It's probably still a pretty small difference, though, right?
It's very small. In fact, as a matter of practice, I don't do that. I choose overwing exit rows, primarily because I'm in the exit row. I want to be one of the first ones out of the airplane if we have to leave. Plus, there's a little bit more space there, a little more leg room is the other reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I do that too. I'm 5'11", so I always take that one.
You're a tall girl, right? Exactly. So you get it, and and plus it's nice to be third one out if it all goes bad. But
is that a tip you would give somebody if they wanted to take every precaution?
I do. I mean, that's personally what I do. If you look at, we probably don't want to say this, but if you look at people that die from smoke inhalation and survivable accidents, it's people that are the first away from the accident are the ones from the exit are the ones that usually die.
Yeah.
So it's people you find like 20 rows away, they're either incapacitated or there's basically a line forms, and the first 10 people make it out before the smoke finally becomes so choking and the carbon dioxide builds up that the rest of them collapse. I mean, that's kind of how it tends to go. And there's numerous examples of this. I mean, the the American Airlines Little Rock accident, 1420 is an example where some people didn't make it out because of reduced visibility and hazardous environment. So here's the other part of this that you probably don't want to put, but is, if you go over wing exits, that's good, but you're going to be one of the first ones out, so more likely to survive a toxic environment. But you're also on top of the fuel tanks.
Okay.
So when there's a really bad crash, it tends to be that center part of the airplane gets burnt the worst.
Okay.
So there's a motivation not to set the exit row, to set more toward the back. So you can see why it just depends on the accident. I mean, there's some accidents where setting in the back is absolutely the best place to be, and there's other ones where setting over the wing is the best place to be.
Okay. So really, in the end,
it's almost a wash. Yeah, I mean, it's just almost a wash. I go for the overwing exit.
Okay. All right. What would some of your other safety tips be?
Yeah, this one's probably not going to go well with most people, but as an investigator, just pet peeve, drives me crazy, is you should not be wearing flip-flops on an airplane. If you have to evacuate, you might have to walk through burning fuel, around a lot of sharp metal. There have been people that have become disabled because they're trying to walk through a hazardous environment. You can't do that in flip-flops. And there are people that have actually become disabled because they're trying to walk through torn metal and sometimes burning fuel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you see people doing it all the time. It just drives me crazy when I walk through the airports and I see everyone in flip-flops, and it's just like, Now the other part of that is you can't exactly dress in a no-mech suit, and wear a crash helmet either, right? So it has to be something in between. But I think a lot of people think, well, if this plane's going down, we're all going to die anyway, so I might as well wear comfortable footwear. But that's not actually. But that's not actually the way it works, right? Most accidents are survivable. That smoking hole where everybody's wiped out is just extremely rare.
Okay. And that's what you would refer to as one of those accidents we see on TV, smoking hole.
Yeah, just a totally non-survivable, the airplane's obliterated kind of thing. People think that's the most common. If there's going to be an accident, that's what it's going to look like, and in fact, that's not what they normally look like.
Okay. Well, that's a good one. That's unexpected and interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
So I think, where to set, count the rows, maybe just think about what's on your feet, think are three things that will go a long way if you have to evacuate that airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that are going to go a long way in ensuring your survivability.
Okay. How important is it to take out your headphones and listen when the flight attendants are doing their safety demonstration?
It really is, because if anything, that's your moment to count how many rows you are from an exit. That's your moment to look around and figure out where the exit is, look around, see if it's behind you. It serves as a nice reminder. I realize all of us know how to buckle a seatbelt, and that part seems, quite a bit pedestrian. It's like seriously, I think I know how to do this. Shouldn't be allowed out in public if you can't figure out how to do it yourself. But if you're unless you're on a day pass or something somewhere. But yeah, don't quote me on that. That's smart. I've had too much caffeine. I'm punchy right now. So,
I won't.
So yeah, because that's the time. That's when it reminds me, because you're busy listening to music and you're reading and you're looking at your iPhone and all this other stuff going on, and we're all going 100 miles an hour. But when they start doing that safety briefing, that's my personal reminder. Oh, I need to take a look around. Where's the best way to go? I tend to count both forward and backwards, but I might be expecting a lot of people to do that and to remember that in a crisis. So I was just saying just count one, but I personally tend to count both forward and backwards, 8 rows back, 15 forward, or something like that. But that's a nice reminder.
Yeah, and that makes sense, though, to count forward and back, because if something was like obstructing the way you thought you were going to go, because that's closer than the other one.
People are lined up. If it's only 6 in back of me, but the line isn't moving, but I know it's 15 in front of me, and I can't see anyone for the next 4 rows or something. I might start heading towards the front as the smoke is continuing to build and the urgency is increasing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should pay attention. If anything, just because that's your chance to figure out what is the quickest way off this airplane. And that's something everyone should know. What's the quickest way off? The FAA expects that everybody will be off that airplane in 90 seconds.
Oh.
When they're doing the initial testing for a new type of aircraft, they have to evacuate the aircraft in 90 seconds.
Wow.
And that's with half of the exits blocked.
Does that happen?
Yeah, they do.
Wow,
yep.
That's impressive.
It does happen. In fact, it's happened in real life, too. If you think about the Air France accident in Toronto, that was a huge airplane. I think it was an I'm not sure what I shouldn't say, A330, A340, something like that. Big airplane. And that's an amazing video to watch, because you see all these hatches all of a sudden start popping, and people are pouring out like ants, and they actually do make it off well under 2 minutes.
That's impressive.
And that aircraft was actively on fire. I mean, it was really burning. And everyone survived. And there's other examples of it too. But yeah, 90 seconds is the certification with half the exits blocked.
Okay. If there is a fire on board, are there any specific tips for that kind of situation?
Try to stay as low as you can.
Yeah.
I could tell you, I was a firefighter for years also. The most hazardous part of the environment is higher up you go. That's why even firefighters, even though with all of our gear on and air tanks and so forth, we crawl. We don't walk into fires. We crawl into fires. So you can only imagine with no protective gear on how standing up, simply one breath in certain environments, standing up could be the end. Whereas you could crawl out successfully. It could be that much of a difference. It could be a couple 100 degrees between floor and ceiling.
Wow. Okay. Let's see.
So now this is all probably scared the hell out of you. You're probably not going to fly again, right? You're like, damn it, it's Pershing's fault. I never want to go.
Well, I'll be looking around and thinking a little harder the next time I am on a plane. But what about all this stuff with the oxygen masks and life vests? What do people need to know about those?
So I think certainly, something I do is that when I know it's an overwater flight, I think about where the life vest is, because you don't always have a lot of time to put on your life vest. I think U.S. Airways 1549 is a perfect example. The Miracle on the Hudson. I mean, that airplane went down so quick and it went into water. that this is not a great time to be fumbling around trying to figure out where your life vest is, because in different airplanes, it can be in different places. That's why they'll usually, during the briefing, they'll say it might be under your seat, it might be in the armrest. I would just take a second, and you usually just have to put your hand underneath the seat. You could feel the box down there, and now I know where it is. And if I've only got 60 seconds to find it and put it on, I just saved a huge amount of time because I know exactly where to grab for it.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, you're not worried about you're at 38,000 feet and they're going to have to ditch, because you've got a lot of time. You've got 20 minutes or so before it's going to get to the water at those high altitudes. At those low altitudes is where it becomes imperative. And that accident was a classic example of the need to know where that is. So have an idea for your airplane where your vest is. I think the biggest thing with the oxygen mask is exactly what they say in the briefing, is put it on yourself before you help someone else. And just because the bag's not inflated doesn't mean there isn't oxygen flowing. And, not to worry about that. If you see your bag is flat and someone else is puffed up, and that those will automatically expand when you need them, and to just calmly put it on, breathe normal, and just breathe normal.
Okay. Can you think of any kind of common impulses that people have in a situation like that, where maybe it doesn't make sense to take that action, but, they're getting an adrenaline rush and then they're freaking out, and that's what they do?
Yep, it would be opening emergency exits without being told to do so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, people panic. They think because here's the problem is crew members are trained to look out the window and assess if that's a good side of the aircraft to evacuate or not. So when I was flying for the airline as captain, one of my responsibilities was, if I was going to call for an evacuation, I need to tell people, you can go out both sides of the airplane, or left side only, or right side only, based on hazards that I know are on the outside. Flight attendants will look. That's why your window screen has to be up for takeoff and landing, because if a takeoff or landing accident, they need to be able to look out the window to see if there's a fire on that side, because the last thing you want to do is open the door into a fire, obviously. So if the right side of the airplane is burning, then we're only going to use left side exits. So people will have a knee-jerk reaction sometimes to just get an exit open without really understanding that might not be the best exit to open. Wait till you hear that instructions from the crew members on board. Sometimes it's safer just to stay in the airplane and not open any exits, but you need people that are trained to make that decision for you before you just start randomly opening doors and windows.
Okay. All right, so that's one impulse not to follow.
Yep, listen to the crew members. They will tell you which side you should go out of, or just in some cases stay in the airplane.
Okay. I guess that would be a separate one, even, is just listen to the crew, period, in general. They're trained for this. They know what to do.
That's our focus is so much on just safety and training, and it's just what we do. Every year we go through annual training on topics just like this.
Okay.
And history has shown that when it comes time to do it, we do it successfully. And I mean, there's a good track record of crews that have successfully evacuated aircraft or kept people on board and have done the right thing. So, and that's just because of the training.
All right. Okay. Can you think of anything else that you should or should not do in the unlikely event that I didn't ask about?
The only other thing, and this is something that's kind of a hot button topic for the NTSB, is lab children.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that you really should not hold your child on your lap.
Okay.
That every year kids are injured with turbulence-related events. You like to think that you'd be able to hold on to them, but sometimes turbulence is enough that you cannot necessarily hold on to them, and they can become injured. Or in the case of accidents, as I've talked about, most of them are survivable, but they become little projectiles, unfortunately.
Little projectiles.
They do, and as hard as you might think you can hold on to them, some of these
Yeah.
impacts are firm enough that you're not able to do that, and they'll go flying several rows up and obviously seriously injured or killed out of that. There have been many accidents where the fatality rate is extremely low, except for the last children who have
Okay.
that parachute. So kids, no matter the age, should have their own seat with a seatbelt, just like we do in cars. You should be doing that in airplanes too. And it's something the FAA will not require, but the NTSB's been screaming about it for a long, long time because we keep seeing event after event where last kids are injured or killed.
Interesting. Okay. And
So I
that's
think
is that true even of like little babies?
it's any child that you're trying to hold in your lap. During some of these accident events, there's just too much force involved. You just can't hang on to them.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Great.
I think that would probably be the last thing that I would think of. So
Uh-huh.
if all this isn't enough to terrify someone from flying, I'm not sure what will. That was supposed to be a joke, but okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Great. This has been interesting and helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
Call me if you have any other questions, or just use your mom's cell phone and I'll recognize who you are when you call. And
Nicole.
could you send me, always interested in seeing what people write after interviews and so forth. So would you mind sending me a copy of what you finished with?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. That'll be sometime in the next couple weeks.
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
Great.
call back if you have any other questions, okay?
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right. Have a good one.